Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and I'm excited today because after all that cleaning and hard work to get this thing back into playing shape, we're going to be taking another look and finally having a listen to this 2007 Gibson Goddess. Now, unlike the majority of the guitar overviews that I do for this YouTube channel, we are going to skip the part where I put this guitar on the bench because I already made a half-hour video of this guitar being worked on the bench. If you're interested in that, seeing the up-close and personals of this thing, you can click up here and knock yourself out. But for today, I want to focus on the kind of sounds of the guitar itself. Obviously, it's a little bit important you hear what the thing sounds like. Also, some thoughts and comparisons of size versus a traditional Les Paul standard from Gibson, as well as maybe giving Gibson, in case anybody from there ever watches this, a little bit of advice for potential future models. But I'm going to start with some sounds first. Now, guitar, straight into the Benson preamp, that into the Mesa Boogie Recto Verb. We're going to be using all of our traditional kind of drive sounds with the Benson, but we did go onto the modern gain channel of the Mesa Boogie because this thing absolutely rips. Do not let the name fool you or make you think that this is a wimpy little girl's guitar. It most certainly is not. This handles gain better than my Wildwood Les Paul standard does. We're going to mic it up with the SM57 straight into the Focusrite 18i8. So let's get started. Now, when I first had a Gibson Goddess 12 years ago, I almost never played it on any sort of clean channel. It always had gobs of gain on it. I was really big into punk rock and that kind of thing when I was a little bit younger. But hearing this today, I even used the Ruby through the effects loop of the Mesa Boogie. That's how you heard some of that tremolo on it. I think this thing sounds really sweet. I like these 498 and 490 pickups, and obviously you get the super cool kind of blue hue. Depending on which finish you got, it would match with the pickups themselves. This thing's a really good all-around guitar. It's not a one-trick pony in that sense. And the other thing that I really like about this, I'm going to do an extra clip right here. I like how it can transition from really mellow and crystal clear in the middle position, switch it over to the bridge, boom, Benson, you got straight up rock and roll. I love it. And while this guitar is scaled down in terms of the actual size of the body, I don't think you're sacrificing much for the tones, especially if you are going to be playing a lot of gain and you want something that's going to cut through a mix. I think that this thing, as is, absolutely does a wonderful job at it. But there are a few things spec-wise that I did not mention that I think it's worth kind of going over here. This has a 60 slim taper neck on it. The nut width is actually a little bit narrower than a traditional Gibson Les Paul, so that's kind of cool if you have smaller hands or used to playing guitars from a place like Fender Japan, for example. Same thing with those, so this fits like a glove for me in that sense. You do have only one volume and one tone, and you do have a wraparound tailpiece. And one thing I really like about this guitar compared to other smaller or lightweight versions that Gibson have released over the years, like the Custom Light or the Classic Light, which is currently still available from American Musical, there is no tummy cut on this guitar. So when you're sitting and playing it, it does, despite its little smaller size, feel like a Gibson Les Paul. But I think the best way to kind of go over the size and put it into perspective of how big or little the difference may be, why don't we put them on the stand next to each other and have a look. Now here we have a Gibson Les Paul Standard next to the Gibson Goddess, and there are two things that jump out to me that show this is a little bit of a scaled down instrument. And the first would be the actual waist of the guitar. If we measure it roughly on here, that is 6 3/4. If we measure the same thing on the Les Paul Standard, 7 3/4. So that's an inch right there. That'll definitely help knock some of that weight off of it. And the second thing is actually here. If you look in this area of the guitar on each of them, this switch is a lot closer to the neck, and there's not nearly as much room as there is on this guitar, where there seems to be a little bit more room to it and also a little bit more distance between the switch and the fingerboard. Are any of these things major deals? No, but it kind of makes it understandable why this guitar is a lot more comfortable, both in terms of the ergonomic for smaller people, as well as, you know, on a regular basis, these are going to be lighter unless you're talking about an ultra weight relieved version of a Les Paul, which that is not. And real quick, one thing I know will be a question in the comments section if I do not address it in this video and provide that information is, how much does this guitar weigh? Because we kind of skipped that part when I was doing all the repair and maintenance on the bench. 6 pounds, 12 ounces, or 3 kilograms on the dot. So exceptionally light for a Gibson Les Paul. And that's pretty much all I wanted to go over with this guitar. I wanted to show you side by side how it looked versus a Gibson Les Paul Standard, give you my impressions of the actual guitar itself, as well as having a listen to it and playing it through the Mesa Boogie amp. I'm gonna finish this up with some advice to Gibson. When you first released this guitar in 2006, it was a different time and a different era. I don't think it was the greatest idea to call this guitar the Gibson Goddess. And should you decide to bring this guitar back, I mean, you could probably get away with it nowadays, considering there are more girl guitar players than ever, but I would just stay away from that entirely. You have the formula. You have a very lightweight guitar that does not compromise in the aggressiveness and just the actual feel of a real Gibson Les Paul. Maybe you do offer some throwback finishes like this, and the violet, please make the violet. I will buy another one of those 100% if you decide to do that. Give it modern hardware, you know? What's the harm in that? The streamlined down version of it, there's a big market for this, especially the fact that this guitar is so light. You have competition right now from so many import brands that are offering all of these things and at an insanely competitive price. I appreciate what you've done, bringing back the Les Paul standards to non-weight relief bodies and, you know, doing a pretty decent overall job of quality control with me and with my experiences. I know there will some be in the comments saying, oh, well, I got such a piece of junk, I had to send it back, then they sent me another piece of junk. Yeah, I get it, it happens. Nobody's perfect, and I'm not defending Gibson, but the point being, I think you'd be fools not to bring this guitar back. I think this is the perfect time to do it. That's just my 2 cents. But that's going to be where I'm going to love and leave you for today. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. Good luck finding one of these things. If you can find one of these things for $2,000 or less, buy it up immediately, because if you don't, somebody else will, and you'll be kicking yourself, because it's going to be quite some time, unless, you know, some miracle happens where another one is going to be listed. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about these guitars, or if you'd be interested if Gibson brought one of these back, or what changes you would make to this if it was supposed to be a brand new model entirely. However, hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in this wonderful world. Take it easy. I'll see you in the next video.